6 things you should never explain to anyone. If you want to understand power, do not look at money, titles, or popularity. Look at behavior. More specifically, look at what a man feels compelled to explain. The Stoics understood that explanation is not neutral. It reveals uncertainty. It exposes dependence on approval. Just as excessive noise betrays anxiety, excessive explanation betrays weakness of position. Today, we will uncover 6 things you should never explain to anyone. These are not rules of arrogance, but principles of authority. If you recognize these habits in yourself, it is an invitation to sharpen your discipline. If you see them in others, you will understand immediately who holds power and who seeks permission. The first is your decisions. The moment you explain a decision, you place it on trial. You invite judgment from those who were never meant to be judges. A man who is secure in his judgment does not feel the urge to defend it. He acts and he stands still. Marcus Aurelius reminded us that if something is right, it needs no defense. When you rush to justify your choices, you signal doubt, even if the decision was correct. The weak man explains because he wants reassurance. The strong man decides because he has already accepted the consequences. Authority begins where explanation ends. The second is your boundaries. A boundary explained becomes a negotiation. The moment you say why, you imply that it can be argued against. Epictetus taught that freedom begins with knowing what is yours to control. Your time, your energy, your tolerance are yours alone. When you explain your boundaries, you teach others how to cross them. When you enforce them quietly, you teach others where the line is. Respect does not come from understanding. It comes from consistency. The man who explains his limits will have them tested. The man who enforces them will have them remembered. The third is your silence. Silence unsettles people because it removes their leverage. That is why they ask questions. That is why they push for explanations. When you explain your silence, you hand back control. Seneca warned that unnecessary speech dilutes authority. Silence, when chosen, creates pressure. It forces others to reveal themselves. A man who explains why he is quiet is trying to relieve discomfort, not create strength. The Stoic uses silence as a tool, not a defense. When you speak less, your words carry weight. When you explain why you spoke less, you make them lighter. Halfway through this, it should already be clear that Stoicism is not about saying nothing. It is about saying only what strengthens your position. If this way of thinking sharpens how you see human behavior, you already know where to be. The fourth is your past. The past is finished. It has no power unless you keep resurrecting it. When you explain your past, you give others material. They may not use it today, but they will remember it tomorrow. Marcus Aurelius wrote that what no longer exists cannot harm you. Yet men harm themselves by dragging old versions of who they were into the present. The weak man explains his past to be understood. The strong man lets the present speak for him. Growth does not require explanation. It requires evidence. Silence about the past is not denial. It is dominance over it. The fifth is your ambitions. Unspoken goals move faster. Spoken goals attract interference. The Stoics warned against revealing plans before action because intention without execution invites opinion, doubt, and envy. When you explain your ambitions, you dilute them. You begin to live in anticipation of approval rather than commitment to action. The disciplined man works quietly. He allows results to announce his intent. Ambition explained becomes performance. Ambition executed becomes reality. One earns respect through outcomes, not declarations. The sixth is your self-respect. The moment you explain why you deserve respect, you have already lost it. Respect is not granted because it is argued for. It is felt because it is embodied. A man who announces his value is insecure in it. A man who lives his principles does not need to be recognized. Epictetus taught that character speaks even when the mouth is closed. Self-respect is demonstrated through consistency, restraint, and standards. When you explain it, you cheapen it. When you live it, others adjust automatically. These 6 habits reveal a simple truth. Explanation is often a symptom, not a solution. Men explain when they are uncomfortable standing alone. They explain when they fear misunderstanding more than they value authority. But Stoicism teaches us that strength is internal alignment, not external agreement. You do not need to be understood by everyone. You need to be solid within yourself. The world is loud. Opinions are cheap. Judgment is constant. The man who survives this environment with clarity is the man who knows when to speak and when to remain silent. Not everything deserves a response. Not everything requires clarification. Some things are weakened by being spoken aloud. When you stop explaining, something changes. People listen more carefully. They interrupt less. They project strength where there is calm. Silence creates gravity. Explanation creates motion. And power has always belonged to what stands still, while others move around it. The Stoics did not seek dominance over others. They sought mastery over themselves, and one of the highest forms of that mastery is restraint. Knowing that you could explain, but choosing not to. Knowing that you could justify, but choosing to act instead. If you carry this discipline with you, your presence will change. Not because you demand respect, but because you no longer chase it. And that is where true authority begins.